Hare Krishna, we continue reading the first chapter of uh, Nectar of Devotion. We were reading yesterday how we are suffering because of sinful reactions. We have sinful reactions because of sinful activities. We perform sinful activities because of ignorance. Some sinful reactions we are already suffering, that's mature, and some which are not yet mature, we will have to suffer for them at a later time. So, reading on, there are many results of past sinful activities for which we are suffering at the present moment, and we may be suffering in the future due to our present sinful activities. But all of these reactions to sinful deeds can immediately be stopped if we take to Krishna consciousness. So, this cycle of suffering and committing sinful activities, it goes on and on. How to finish this cycle immediately? Immediately, how to stop it? Take, take up Krishna consciousness. As evidence for this, Rupa Goswami quotes from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 14th chapter, verse 19. So Rupa Goswami is saying how to stop this cycle of suffering and committing further sins. Because not only are we suffering for our sins, but we continue to act sinfully. So we are creating further sins for ourselves. So how can we stop acting sinfully? We may go to place of pilgrimage or some bathe in some pious river, holy river, all that, to clean away our past sins. But what happens is, after we come back, we continue to act sinfully. But if we want to stop even to act sinfully and stop all this suffering of the past sins, take up Krishna consciousness. And the evidence Srila Rupa Goswami is giving is from the 11th canto, 14th chapter, verse 19 of Srimad Bhagavatam. This verse is in connection with Lord Krishna's instruction to Uddhav, where he says, "My dear Uddhav, devotional service unto me is just like a blazing fire, which can burn into ashes unlimited fuel supplied to it." So Krishna speaks to Uddhav in the 11th canto. That section of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, is called Uddhav Gita. As we have the Bhagavad Gita, in which Krishna gave instructions to Arjuna, similarly, there is a section of Bhagavatam in the 11th canto that's called Uddhav Gita, where Lord Krishna is giving instructions to Uddhava. And he's saying, devotional service unto me is just like a blazing fire, which can burn into ashes, unlimited fuel supplied to it. You know, as much fuel as you put in the fire will keep on burning and blazing and blazing. And that is devotional service. Devotional service can burn out anything. The purpose is that the blazing fire can burn any amount of fuel to ashes. So devotional service to the Lord in Krishna consciousness can burn up all the fuel of sinful activities. There is no sin, no amount of sins that the devotional service to Krishna cannot immediately burn it up. Devotional service is much on a much greater level than the sins or the sinful reactions. So it can immediately burn up all sinful reactions. For example, in the Gita, Arjuna thought that fighting was a sinful activity, but Krishna engaged him on the battlefield under his order. And so the fighting became devotional service. Therefore, Arjuna was not subjected to any sinful reaction. So, devotional service, acting for the pleasure of Krishna, it can help us to burn all our sinful reactions. Arjuna, he did not want to fight. It was his duty to fight, but he did not want to fight. He said he will get sinful reactions. But Krishna told him, "You fight for my pleasure. It is your duty to fight, and I want you to fight, and you fight for my pleasure." And in this way, Arjuna's fighting is devotional service to Krishna. And because of that, he does not get any sinful reactions. In fact, he's celebrated even till today as the hero of Mahabharata. Till today, 5,000 years later, we are saying, wow, Arjuna is so qualified, such a great personality. So devotional service to Krishna can burn all our sinful reactions. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 66, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall save you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Krishna says, don't fear. I will take away all your sinful reactions. Srila Rupa Goswami quotes another verse from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 33rd chapter, verse 6, in which Devahuti addresses her son Kapila Dev and says, so third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the where Lord Kapila is giving transcendental knowledge to Devahuti is called Kapila Shiksha. So in this section, 33rd chapter, verse 6, Devahuti is telling to Kapila Dev, my dear Lord, there are 9 different kinds of devotional service, beginning with hearing and chanting. Anyone who hears about your pastimes, who chants about your glories, who offers you obeisances, who thinks of you, and in this way executes any of the 9 kinds of devotional service, even if he is born in a family of dog eaters, the lowest grade of mankind, becomes immediately qualified to perform sacrifices. So Devotee is saying that if someone is born in the family of dog eaters, he's lowest of mankind, he's done all sorts of abominable sinful activities. If he is engaged in any one of the 9 processes of bhakti, means if the lowest of the lowest person is engaged in devotional service, he immediately comes to the platform of a brahmana. He is immediately qualified to perform sacrifices. The 9 kinds of devotional service are devotional service, the Nava Anga Bhakti, we say, hearing, chanting, remembering, uh, worshipping the deity, offering prayers, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, serving the Lord as a friend, as a parent, and surrendering completely oneself to the Lord. So devotional service begins with hearing and chanting. And this hearing and chanting are specifically very, very important for us. We can engage in devotional service. This is devotional service, hearing and chanting about the Lord. Anyone who hears about your pastimes, who chants about your glories, who offers you obeisances, and who thinks of you, and in this way executes any of the 9 kinds of devotional service, even if he's born in a family of dog eaters, becomes immediately qualified to perform sacrifices. So we can see that these acts of devotional service is not material, it's not mundane, it's not just merely a ritual, not something that's just going to give us some pious result. No, it's on the transcendental platform. We may be in the modes. Yes, we may be in the modes. So our devotional service may be affected by the modes, but devotional service itself is on the transcendental platform. Hearing and chanting of the Lord, remembering the Lord, offering obeisances to the Lord. By just doing this, one devotee is saying that you come immediately qualified to perform sacrifices. As such, how is it possible that anyone actually engaged in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness has not become purified? So the point to be raised is devotee is saying someone who's just doing these things has become a brahmana. Then the point to consider is if one, he's a pure devotee, he's completely Krishna conscious, then of course he's on the purified platform. Of course he's on the liberated platform. He's not at all contaminated by the material modes. He does not have his false ego anymore. He does not have false ego. He's given up the false ego. He's completely purified and he's engaging in devotional service to Krishna. So the question is, so it's not possible that a pure devotee is not on the liberated platform. It's not possible. One who is engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service has without doubt become freed from all contaminations of material sinful activities. So a pure devotee, a devotee who's completely engaged in Krishna consciousness, whose every action is just for the pleasure of Krishna. He has no material desire at all. Then, without a doubt, he's on the liberated platform. He has no more karma, no more material sinful activities. He has no desire to sin. He has no more material desires. He's completely on the liberated platform. Devotional service, therefore, has the power to actually nullify all kinds of reactions to sinful deeds. So, if we want to get rid of sinful reactions, the quickest, shortest, fastest way is engage in devotional service. Engage in devotional service. It helps us take away all our sinful reactions. Of course, the goal of devotional service is prema pumartha mahan, not simply to get rid of sinful reactions. Getting rid of sinful reactions is the first thing that happens. It happens automatically. But our desire should be to revive our love of Krishna. Because if our goal is just to get free of sinful reactions, for easily devotional service can give us. But devotional service can give us the highest benefit, which is love of Krishna. A devotee is nevertheless always alert not to commit any sinful activities. This is a specific qualification as a devotee. Thus, Srimad Bhagavatam states that by performing devotional service, a person who was born even in a family of dog eaters may become eligible to take part in the performance of the ritualistic ceremonies recommended in the Vedas. So, a devotee, not only does he get rid of all the sinful reactions, but the desire to sin is not there anymore in his heart. Because that's what devotional service also burns away, our desire to sin. No other pious activity takes away that desire to sin. Sure, we can get a lot, we can give up our sinful reactions. There's pious activities which can take away our sinful reactions. But the only activity that can take away our desire to sin, that is devotional service. It is implicit in the statement that a person born in a family of dog eaters is generally not fit for performing yajna or sacrifice. The priestly caste in charge of performing these ritualistic ceremonies recommended in the Vedas is called the Brahmana order. Unless one is a Brahmana, he cannot perform these ceremonies. So a person who's engaged in devotional service, even if he is born in a family of dog eaters, committed any amount of abominable activities, as soon as he becomes a devotee, he becomes a Brahmana. He's eligible to perform Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. This is the potency of devotional service. Any questions or comments?
No, no questions. It's okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for listening in and joining in. Shla Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.